Okay, well, we're going to move on now, and our guest this afternoon is Paul Roberts, who is the father who, I nearly failed to have words really to describe this, but in a report on UK Column, we've shown his incredible video where we were able to see for ourselves his one-day-old baby being stolen by unnamed individuals from Staffordshire Social Services. So, Paul, we should have you on the line here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on the programme. I know it takes immense courage to speak out about what happens in social services, and also we can say to all of our viewers that a common tactic across social services throughout the United Kingdom is that if parents, mothers or fathers, dare to speak out, the normal response from social services is simply to cut contact with the children. It's absolute blackmail, emotional blackmail. So thank you for having the courage to speak, because I know that you've been threatened in the same way. What I've got, Paul, is a couple of opening clips just to bring people up to date who might not have seen what's been happening. So the first one here, the first one here is part of the film clip where social services and the police have come into your house. And of course, the thing which was so incredible is that we now know that you simply did not know who these women were. You'd no idea of their names or positions or status. They're obviously able to get into your house by the fact that they were with a police WPC and a police officer. They were also accompanied by a man. This is the man concerned. We understand that he has now been named, and we believe he's Michael O'Connor. But we will say to people watching the programme today, there are many people who have the same name, and therefore great care has to be taken. But the important thing is here is if we have people who are taking away children, surely we should all know who they are and what their positions are. So with that as an introduction, Paul, would you like to tell us what you would like to say about what's happened?
Well, I'd like to know how they managed to get the emergency protection order for starters. Because there is some case law that says that an emergency protection order, summarily removing the child from his parents, is a draconian and extremely harsh measure, requiring exceptional justification and exceptionally compelling reasons. And it goes on to say they should try everything in their power before even contemplating separation, and they should they should have evidence that the child is in imminent danger, for starters. And the recording that I put up as well from a previous case, it was a pre-birth case conference when they stole a daughter last year. They said that we're not a danger to our children or any child. And they said that they did have a problem with parenting.
Right, Paul, many people most people who've watched the video were absolutely horrified by it, because for the average person in this country, they have absolutely no idea how social services operate, how unbelievably cold and callous they can be. And that team came into your house. For somebody who's new, just set the background a little bit. How did they come to be in your house to take your son? Just give us a little bit, if you're comfortable with it. What is the background? How did social services get involved with you as a family? And how did it lead up to this taking of your son?
It was before we even became a family. My wife was in a place called Harfield Court in Uttoxeter. It's part of the Rushfield Care Group. It's like a corporation type thing, lots of care homes, and it was for learning disabilities, like adult care. When I moved her out of there, because she was being sort of raped and beaten every day of her life, it was more like a friend helping another friend out. You know, she could move in with me, a place of safety for a bit, and that's how we met. It was more like we were friends at the start. But social services followed her from there. This was adult services, and they were quite good at the time. We had lots of helpful social workers. Me and my wife, we sort of like, things progressed, fell in love, got married, as you do. It was 2002 that she became pregnant with her first. Well, her first was born. And that's when children's services got involved. At first, they were helpful. We had family support group, a family support worker come in. They'd see just for a cup of tea and a chat, see how we are. If we needed any support or help with anything, they'd sort it out, you know, or they'd sort of like point us in the right direction. Things were going well until our eldest was age 7, and we had another daughter. She was age 1 at the time. We had a change of social worker. He pulled the support away, and the children were taken without even a care order and without our consent. So I class that as a kidnapping. You know, that's how they got involved in the first place. That case, it's over with. There's no injunction, so I can talk about this case. In the court, the final hearing, Kafka said that although all the care needs were met and the children wished to return home, and at this point we thought we'd won, as like a feeling of relief came over us. And then he sort of like turned it round and said he feels that the children would be at risk of emotional harm in the future, and he recommended adoption. So it was magistrates, they just do as they were told, really. It seemed that way anyway. There's a lot of lies in the reports as well. They take a fraction of truth and build it into these fantastic stories, really. They should write fiction. And they said an appeal would be seen as emotional harm as well. The magistrates put the rest together with Anne Hume, who's the Staffordshire's legal person, solicitor, and said they can block an appeal. We've never been able to appeal any of the cases. Last year, we had a daughter stolen at birth. It was a midwife who lifted my daughter out of my arms and ran out of the delivery suite. There's 2 policemen blocking the door, so we couldn't sort of like go out of the room. We was held in the room for a good 40 minutes or so. A social worker was there and her boss. And there is an injunction on that case. There's a county court injunction and a high court injunction, so I can't talk about the case. But I feel I should tell you about how the injunction came into place. It was Judge Orwell at Derby Court. He's got me to sign this bit of paper by saying that if I didn't sign it, this is a county court injunction, he would stop my contact with my daughter. And I says, well, I'm not signing. I'm just not going to sign it. I don't see why I should. And then he says, well, if you don't sign it, I'll put you in prison. And still I wouldn't sign, you know, because they've stolen my children. Prison's nothing compared to that. And then he threatened to stop my wife's contact unless I signed. And I don't want to stand in the way of that. And I said, isn't this blackmail? And he just says, call it what you will. And I signed it anyway because I didn't want my wife's contact to stop. So that's how the first injunction came in. So I can't talk about that case. But they're seeking an injunction on this to take the video offline and to hide what they're doing. And yep. That's in court on Friday.
This is an absolutely key thing, isn't it, that you're bringing out here. I've experienced it, and many other people have experienced it who've gone near the family courts or tried to help families as a Mackenzie's friend. The average member of the public absolutely no idea what's going on inside these secret courts, and of course, as you rightly pointed out, they're stealing the children. And then the biggest offence of that is for people to hold up their hands and start shouting what's going on. And the moment you do, in come the judges threatening you with imprisonment if you publish details of the cases as they go on. So we have secret courts with no press, no members of the public, and in many of the cases that we've come across as UK Column, the families haven't even had a Mackenzie friend with them in at least some of the hearings. And yet if they dare to speak out both to the national press or the alternative press, free press and media as we call it, the judges are threatening injunctions and imprisonment. And I've had a judge threaten me with imprisonment if I dared to release information in relation to one of the cases. Now this may come as a shock to people who haven't really come across these child stealing cases before, but the facts you're hearing from Paul are again that the state is absolutely desperate to make sure that people do not understand what's going on. So what's the situation, or what can you tell us with your son at the moment? Do you have contact? He's been taken now for what, 3 days?
Since, was it last Wednesday on the 4th anyway, he was taken. We had 2 hours contact the day after, and then we've had another 2 hours, so that's 4 hours, and now it's going to be 2 hours a week, and that's it until the outcome of the case, which is more than likely going to be another forced adoption.
Yeah,
and I can talk about it because there's no injunction, the case hasn't started, so any information you need, get it now, because you've been very outspoken, Paul, in getting information up on the internet, which is giving people the detail about what's happened. What would you do this time if the blackmail starts? If you speak out, you can't see your son. What will you do? There's not a lot I can do apart from disobey this order, in this prison. But it needs to come out. It's happening to loads of families, I'm willing to this prison. I'm not committing a crime, I'm not doing anything wrong. These courts, they're not even, the coronation oath, 1950 odd, there wasn't even family courts around then. The Queen swore an oath to the people to govern us using HM government, which everyone's voted in. That's how she governs us, according to our laws and customs. Well, there was no such thing as family courts back then in these private courts. So this isn't even part of our laws and customs, and they've got judges sitting in private. They can only send people to prison. If you look at our Bill of Rights and going back to Magna Carta days, if we've been found guilty by a jury of our peers, and then the judge decides the sentence. That's how justice should work.
Yes. Now, when the police came into your house, Paul, you were absolutely brilliant, and a lot of people have commented on this. Asher as well. You both, under the circumstances, stayed unbelievably calm. But at one point you challenged the police officer, in particular the male police officer, with what he knew about law. And he didn't seem to really understand very much about what he was doing.
No, they have to follow the orders, though. That's it. That's what I've been explained by a local policeman as well. He says they have to follow the orders. That's how it works now. They've got no idea about the law, or if they have, they're too scared to follow the law because they'll lose a job. It's all about following orders.
And that is a very scary statement, isn't it? That you've got social service teams who are buried inside local authorities. They're not even accountable to the elected councillors. But those social services teams, presumably with the help of the local authority's legal team, can now tell the local police what to do. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, they just get an order from a magistrate who might be an employee of Staffordshire County Council. He just signs a piece of paper, and they have to follow this order. And the term local authority, it's just a legal term. it's in tax law. It makes them tax exempt as well. I've just found out the other day. So they're doing all this. It's just a levying law or something. They can levy land, property, money and children, as we found out, using this legal term called local authority. And anyone who helps, there's people called local authority associations, who that's another legal term as well. It's for people who assist local authority to reach their goals and targets and to achieve what they're set out to do. So I'm thinking that the police, following the orders, they're working under the legal term local authority association, as well as CAFCAS and the family courts, and because these are private courts, they're probably hired by the child stealers as well. But how can we prove this?
Well, what we've got to do, I think, Paul, is we've got to get as many people as possible across the country digging, researching, lifting up the stones to see what's underneath. I've actually got a couple of slides with the information that you've already given me on this subject. But before we look at that, yeah, it's okay, Mike, go ahead, because I just want to bring us back to what's sort of happening around this business of children being taken. And if anybody out there still sort of doubts what Paul and Asher are saying, if there's anybody who thinks, well, this is all, you know, one story, across UK and over the internet, we now have more and more people who are speaking out. They are shouting that children are being unlawfully stolen from their parents by the British government. And I've got a selection of just sites here where people are talking and speaking out. This is the Alliance of People Against the State. We've got another one. Should come up in a minute. Is it going to behave itself? Yeah, here we are. So they've kindly picked up on your story, and there's a document here which is the the left-hand lower page is actually talking about when you're allowed to visit your son. So this information has spread very rapidly over the internet. We've got another one here called the communitarian trap, and this one has picked up on the story. We know that the UK column report alone, let alone your own video that's gone up, has been viewed by nearly 25,000 people, and we know that more and more people are waking up. We've also reported on another man who's had his daughter unlawfully taken. This is the NATO security, or ex-NATO security chief, Nigel Cooper, and his daughter was removed from his parental custody in Belgium, and despite the Belgian court saying the daughter was to be returned, the UK family courts are literally holding up two fingers. So we're not only seeing secret courts, we're seeing judges who are clearly so sure of themselves that they can tell judiciary overseas to go away or do as they're told. I've got another one here that we reported on, which was literally a kidnap. This was Bonnie Lewis, happened well over 10 years ago now, but a young girl taken from her mother at gunpoint in America by Neath Port Talbot Social Services, and at the time this girl was taken, absolutely no paperwork in place to justify her being taken. And as with your own case, Paul, Bonnie was in a good home. She was ill, and that was later proven. All the mother had tried to do was to actually get her daughter properly diagnosed, but when the girl was unable to attend school because of the pain, the local authorities moved in, eventually kidnapped her, and she has never been returned home to her parents. We also picked up this site on the internet where people are now starting to actually report the names of social workers, and I think this is very, very powerful. If people are doing a job and their job is taking children away from parents, I think it's only reasonable that the wider public should know who they are. There's a lot of secrecy, so this site in particular trying to expose that. And sorry, I'm just highlighting a bit here where they are saying that we should be standing up against the gagging orders. It says, say no to gagging orders, how dare they? We know it's not in the interests of the child, it's in the interests of the perverse judgments and scrappy evidence that could never stand up in a proper court. Furthermore, it could cause a public outcry if it ever got out. We've had enough of the injustice. So that site pretty strong in speaking out about the gagging orders, but also starting to name and shame the social workers. And we also put up the comment from Michael Ellis MP as a typical response. This is what he had to say with regard to your case. Thank you for your email. I cannot comment on the specific case that you've brought to my attention, as I do not have all the details. There are very strict rules governing this matter and local authorities must adhere to them. I'm sure that if any impropriety has taken place, this will be investigated by the relevant authority. When you read this type of dross reply and you look at what's happening across the country with children, Elm House in London or Jimmy Savile, is this man ignorant, or I don't know, is he a fool? There's something wrong. Have you had any help from your local MP at all?
No, he's just not interested. He seems more interested in putting an army uniform on, pretending as a soldier, having photographs taken, and the brewing business, you know, which is quite a big business around where he lives. But as far as families go, he's just not interested. Whether he's scared to get involved, I don't know. But that reply there, we can't get involved in any individual cases, that's the normal reply. I've had that reply every time I've contacted someone, not just about my case, but other cases or a collection of cases. They always say they can't get involved in any individual case. It's like just a brush off. They're just not interested.
And am I right in thinking that this man is actually your MP?
What's his name?
Michael Ellis.
Andrew Griffiths. His name is Andrew Griffiths from Burton-on-Trent.
Right. So we're already seeing this same audit trail, if we call it that when people go to their MPs for help, they don't get it. Parliament was virtually empty when there was a debate recently on child safety, and we contrast that today with the fact that we've got people across all parties calling for MPs to come together to celebrate the life of Maggie Thatcher. But when people are talking about the tens of thousands of children being falsely taken from their parents across the UK, Parliament is empty for the debate. It says something about what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I've said, you know, if a child's being abused, actually being abused, that's a criminal offence, and the police should get involved. It should go to a criminal court instead of hidden away in these private courts. Because then it'll mean the abusers get punished. And if, like in our case, you've got social workers making all sorts of stories up, then they look at every bit of evidence in the criminal court with a jury, and if social workers are found to be lying, that's perjury. They'll get in trouble. It's the prison sentence. There's just no justice at all. You know, you get social workers lying, you get the legal teams making stories up out of little bits of truth and adding to it. They're going after because I had a spell of depression sort of over 3 years ago. They're calling it a history of depression, and they're bringing my mental health into it now. You know, they want me to go to the doctors and get some sort of medication for mental illness that I've not been diagnosed with. You know, they want to get me back into the system and go after me on the mental health side of things.
Well, of course, this is common tactics across many, if not most of the cases, that if the parents actually fight for their children, the response from social services is to ask for a psychiatric assessment. And certainly the cases we've been directly involved in, and speaking to other people who've dealt with far more cases than we have, it's common that the parents who succumb to a psychiatric assessment then receive a shock when a pack of lies is told in that report. So we would certainly say this is one of the most dangerous things for parents to do, which is to allow themselves to have any form of psychiatric or clinical psychologist report done.
I just don't want to play their games. Yeah. I want the whole case to be brought out into the public domain, you know, and I just want it in a proper court with a jury. All the evidence that they're putting forward can be shown and tested. You know, is it true? Find the actual evidence. They're even saying that I'm a violent man. I'm just not. You can ask people who know me, you know, who've known me since I was little, growing up in that. I'm not a violent man at all. I've had my moments years ago, you know, but very few, very rarely. If I've been attacked, I might have hit maybe 1 or 2 people in my entire life in self-defence. And they're making out I'm violent now. I think the video shows, you know, I felt like lashing out and attacking them and getting them out of the house, but no, I didn't. I've not got it in me to hurt other people in that way.
No, your response in the house, Paul, many people have contacted on it, and a lot of them have actually said, how did that man manage to remain so calm and measured? And I think that actually makes the whole incident so powerful. Both of you have commented on the behaviour of the social services team, and I had a lengthy chat with Asher. I've lost track of my evenings now, but evening before last, and you were both commenting on the strange behaviour of the social services team. Tell us what you feel about their behaviour.
They're just not giving us a chance, any type of chance. We've asked them if they could put the support back in place that was working before they snatched our eldest 2 children, which was basically a family support worker popping in for a cup of tea and a chat when they're in the area. And if we've got any problems that we come across, you know, these are normal problems though, like the social worker from the last case, even though I can't talk about the case, with her eldest children, she was a family support worker and we worked well with her, but she wasn't allowed to say that in the case, in the last case.
Right, and the social workers that came into your home, how did you find them?
I spotted one of the social workers or the protection officers. They were doing these strange hand gestures at me. I've seen the videos on NLP and hypnosis and that sort of thing, and how these they put suggestions into you by doing all the hand signals and while they're talking. She was doing all that in my face, and I just swatted her hand away as if it's an annoying fly. That's when the policeman started up, you know, when they is threatening me with assault and stuff like that, you know.
And did you get any emotion out of them? Because watching the video, was
even.
Go on, go ahead.
Oh, there is I had to cut a bit of the beginning of the video off, and because it wouldn't fit onto Facebook, but I do shout through the door to them about the law about breastfeeding mothers. It's if the state in the guise of local authority seeks to remove a baby from his parents at a time when its case against the parents has not yet been established, then the very least the state can do is make generous arrangements for contact. Those arrangements being driven by the needs of the family and not stunted by lack of resources. Typically, if this is what the parents want, this will be one will be looking to contact most days of the week for lengthy periods, and local authorities also have to be sensitive to the wishes of the mother who wants to breastfeed. And this is all case law, and it goes on. It's to do with the human rights of the child as well to breast milk, and the human rights of the mother to breastfeed a baby. They just ignored that.
Your son is denied breast milk at the moment.
Yeah. The midwives even suggested that my wife lets the milk dry up, because she's in a lot of pain from not being able to breastfeed, and it's like a hormonal thing to get the woman's body back to normal after giving birth. You know, it helps with the womb contraction and all the rest of it, and bonding, of course. And they're just not interested in what judges have said in the past, what case law is, or human rights or anything. I've been looking at unalienable rights as well, in the word inalienable. They both mean basically the same, but it's rights that we can't give away because there are rights anyway. They can't be taken from us or sold, or, you know, just natural human rights. And having children, getting married, starting a family, it's a natural human right, and they're just taking it all away from us in these courts with no jurors, no press, just no witnesses or anything. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, when I was speaking to Asher, of course, well, Paul, I find it difficult to express myself in this subject because I cannot understand what it feels like. I think the only way anybody can understand is to have a child taken away from them. But Asher, obviously, as a mum, breastfeeding her very young baby, newborn baby, and one of the things that she said to me on the phone, and I don't think you mind me repeating, she said that it's as if these people do not want me to be happy. Every time I'm happy in my life and I feel comfortable, they come and destroy it. Is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, well, Yvonne said as well the other day, because my wife spoke to Yvonne before when our last daughter was snatched, and she said it's as if they've just torn her heart out, and that's how it feels. It makes you feel helpless. You know, you want to do something to stop them doing it, but they just drill their way through the lock and walk in and ignore the law and snatch the baby. There's nothing you can do to stop it, and it makes you feel so helpless and, well, just unable to protect your own child. And they call it child protection, but they're the ones who profit out of it. I've looked into all the stuff about the public money going into these private foster agencies. You know, that's a few £billion they make out of that, these private companies. And then you've got the family courts, how much money they make out of it as well. They make a living out of stealing children. And you've got people like Martin Nari, who's the adoption czar or whatever they call him. He wants to increase adoptions fourfold. Well, that was going back a few years, but, you know, I wonder why. Just an industry to them. But they're wrecking people's lives. They're just walking all over our human rights, our natural, unalienable rights. You know, it's as if we haven't got any rights.
No. Well, certainly all the research that we've now done over many years is pointing to the fact that children are simply seen as profit, as money. Huge sums changing hands, not only for the fostering and the adoption system, but as you've mentioned with the family courts, we calculated that the minimum amount of money circulating around the courts, the family courts, is £20 billion a year, 20 billion. The minimum spent on a family court case is approximately 238,000. So we're talking big sums of money, and of course everybody is feeding off it, the solicitors and the barristers and the judges themselves. Similarly with the fostering agencies, we're not dealing in companies turning over tens of millions, we're dealing in companies turning over hundreds of millions. So it seems to us that this is child trafficking, stealing and trafficking on a major scale.
Yeah, and it's all using public money and going into private pockets. So it's like money laundering the public money into the private pockets of whoever's got a vested interest in these companies.
Yes.
It's all done.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm thinking it's something to do with, there's an organisation set up, local authorities, county councils network. It's a collection of county councils under the guise of local authority, so that they're just using the legal term local authority.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay, that's all right. I'm just going to put up a slide here, which was another couple, and sorry, I'll just jump back a bit. There we are. A lovely couple in Plymouth, Oliver and Melissa, and I've brought them up in relation to your case because this is another couple that have had 5 children taken from them, all on the basis of a lie in the original case. And the Franklin story, quite remarkable and horrific, that their first born baby was supposedly diagnosed with a cancer, and the proposed treatment was so draconian that Melissa, the mother, said there's no way this can be right. Her mother's instinct said that what the diagnosis the hospital were giving was not correct. Social services were then brought in. They took the baby away. Within a matter of weeks, it was proven that the initial hospital diagnosis was wrong. But the fact that the first baby was taken was then used to take away all of the subsequent children. So if you look at the couple and you say, well, they must have done something wrong. No, they didn't do anything wrong. They'd never hurt, neglected, never done anything to their children at all. The social services have just come along and taken each successive baby. We've had some people who've put forward the view, well, it's crazy that this mother and father keep having children. And this is a comment which I have difficulty reacting to because I find it so callous. Of course, the mum and dad are always feeling that if they have another child, maybe things will be different and they can keep that child. So I know with Oliver and Melissa in particular, they have suffered an ongoing desperation to be able to keep at least one of their children. But every time the social services have created evidence, they've fabricated evidence in order to take the next child. It's almost as though they're using the parents to breed children for them. What would be your comment on that, Paul?
I don't know what to say to it, apart from that is how it is. We've got this desperation that, to be a family, to raise a child, other people can do it. We actually looked into fostering years ago. When we first got married, we was trying for a baby for 2 years, and I looked into fostering. They said that we would be ideally suited to foster a baby or a toddler. And now they're sort of they're saying that nothing's changed, but it has. We've gone through all this. We desperately want just to raise one child, even.
Yes.
And they say, why are you having more children? Well, we want to raise a child as our own. Keep the bloodline going, if you like.
Which is a normal instinct, isn't it? For all of us to have a family and bring up children is a very powerful and normal instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack is named after my granddad. So it's he died when I was young, actually. But he'd be disgusted by this. And then there's, going back generations, you get little, I think little bits of your personality get passed on to your children and your children's children down the line. So it's a way of everlasting life as well, if you like believe in that sort of stuff. A little bit of you gets passed on, even if it's a personality trait, but it lives on through the next generation. Yeah. It's just survival instinct. That's how I see it anyway.
Well,
and they're taking away this, they're stealing your whole future.
Yeah, I don't have any difficulty in agreeing with you on that, because I absolutely feel that. This is the beautiful thing about children, and for those who've got them, grandchildren, that it actually shows that the part of you lives on into the future. We certainly get the impression that what's actually going on is that the state wishes to actually crush this. So it's not just taking the family, taking the children, it's also breaking apart the family. I'm going to call up those the research that you did on the councils, but just one thing before we get to that is that I showed this the other day, but I'll bring it up with you on screen. This was a lady who contacted us as a result of seeing your video, and you've discussed quite frankly with us that yes, well, your family has had some sort of special needs and has had support from social services. This lady says that everything went the other way for her because she was attacked as being too intelligent as a parent with too much education, and therefore that was used as an excuse to say that she may lack emotional warmth. Her house was too clean. She fed her children too well. And apparently social services were very interested in the fact that the children couldn't identify a chicken nugget. She had too many books with an unnatural emphasis on education and activities. And her children were too good with language, so it was used against her that they knew complex words. And the bit which had really hurt her was, in spite of working, she'd still breastfed her children for 18 months. And that was used against her as a symptom of her emotional neediness. And her two older children were removed in 2005, and she fought back until 2010 when she lost the youngest. And again, we've got the situation with this lady where social services have placed her children with her own family. Now, I believe that this is in order to create tension within families. And Paul, you and Asher have also suffered this, I believe.
Yeah, we have.
Can you
just all the stress piled on to get you to read these reports, and you start reading, it's a lie, just an outright lie. Something like, say, me being violent, and then they're making out my wife's being violent, and you know, there's nothing to back up this stuff either. We can't prove or disprove it. But it's really piling on the pressure and making us feel worthless, as though we've lost already. You know, but there is another thing I'd like to bring up with that case you've just read out as well. I think it's Judge Mumby or someone, a QC. He said, I can actually send you the case law. He says society must be willing to tolerate very diverse standards of parenting, including the eccentric, the barely adequate, and the inconsistent. Children will inevitable. I can't really remember, but he goes on to say that the state shouldn't get involved in all the consequences of defective parenting. So, you know, people should be able to parent their children as they see they should parent them. That's what he's saying, basically. If your child's not being harmed, then the state should butt out, let people have their private family life.
I believe that this is one of the interesting things about family law, is we've got some judges who appear to be completely without feeling. Some people have suggested to me that one of the key areas that we have a problem is that some of the judges themselves are paedophiles. That is a particularly interesting thought, that we could have closed family courts where the judges themselves are that perverted. But on the other hand, we have had judges, and I believe Judge Mumby is one of the judges that in some of the cases at least have has made comment and decisions which have appeared to be on the right side of the line. But so it is recognised by the family division that there's going to be a wide variation in parenting. And I think most people would say that if any family can be supported to enable them to keep the child at home, that is surely the best environment. So it does seem strange that at the moment we've got the UK government seeming to do everything possible to get children away from their parents in this way.
Yeah, but if they were to give someone a family support worker, how much does it cost a family support worker? How much pay would they get per week from the state? You know, £300-400 a week they'd get, whereas they could be moving all this, say £1,400 a week into a private care home, foster care agency who pay a foster carer. You know, they've got vested interest in these companies. They're making more money, these private individuals, by stealing the children than they would by putting a family support worker in.
Yes.
You know, that's how I see it.
Well, I believe the money trail is the key. Now, I'm going to bring up, we've got about 7 minutes to go. I'm just going to bring up on screen some of the things that you talked about in relation to local authorities. This is a little bit raw, if you like, but people can freeze the video screen and see it for themselves. But you're talking about the meaning of a local authority. It's a legal term used to levy. We've only got relatively few minutes, so just very quickly, just give us an explanation for each of these. So it's a legal term used to levy, and you've quoted taxworld.co.uk.
Yeah, there are some other links I came across as well. I sent them to Lou, so she could probably send them across to you. But the local authority is just a legal term, and it gives them the power to levy money, property, children, land. That's all it is. It's a levy and a special levy, which is basically stealing. They can just walk in and take whatever they want because they're using the legal term local authority. These councils, they go under the guise of local authority when they do these things.
Okay, and then you've picked up on this local authority association as well, and you actually said agencies involved in stealing children.
Yeah, I believe that they are using the legal term local authority association, because it's the local authority associations are people whose job it is to help local authority achieve their goals and reach their targets or do whatever local authority wants to do. So you've got the police who only take orders, they don't deal with law anymore. You've got the family courts, private courts, who are making money from stealing children. I believe they're local authority associations. You've got CAFCAS, who deliberately, they don't even meet parents, but they side with social services or whoever's stealing the children. So they all tie in with local authority association, or the legal definition of it. You know, they're helping the council to achieve their adoption scorecards, you know, get their little mark on them.
Right.
You know,
and this also ties in with what we covered earlier in the news, the fixated threat assessment centre, where people are being regarded as future threats, and they're being picked up and sectioned by a very secretive little government police organisation. And we've also got the multi-agency public protection arrangement, MAPA, which is a spider's network of organisations which are reporting on people who supposedly may be causing trouble in an area. But what we're also seeing is that that MAPA organisation is also being used to target parents who try and fight back after their children have been stolen. So you're adding another layer to this by saying that the local authority association is tying these groups into even more of a spider's web.
Yeah, there's all these little legal terms that they use and legal definitions of words. You know, they can change the meaning of a word to totally turn things around, and you know, this is legalese. They're playing tricks and pulling the wool over everyone's eyes.
Right. And what about
if you do research?
Sorry?
if you research these things, you know, which a lot of parents probably wouldn't because they're so traumatised by it. But this is our fourth child. We've been looking into all this for over 3 years, just trying to find something to fight back with. And you come across all this information, and people point you towards something else, and you look into that, and it leads you somewhere else. And you know, it is. I believe John Hemming, the MP, said it's a can of worms, and no one wants to lift the lid. Well, they should. People should lift the lid, and they can see what a mess it is. You know, start with one worm at a time. Keep taking them out. Have a look at them. You know, look at all these little organisations. Follow the money.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Paul. You've mentioned here the County Council's network, www.countycouncilsnetwork.org.uk. Just give us 20 seconds on that. What are they doing?
It's a collection of councils under the guise of local authority. So that it's not really a collection of councils. It's a collection of people using the legal term local authority, which is just to levy. If you look up the word levy, it's not a nice word. It's basically stealing, and they use deception, you know, taking people's land. I've seen some documents that have vanished now. Perhaps they've taken them down or moved them somewhere. Giving examples of how to levy by threatening to build something nasty near someone's land, lowering the value, and then offering slightly above the lowest value to get the land. Tactics of how they levy. But obviously they're levying children as well with money.
I'll just call that up on screen. This was some of your original comment. And what you were pointing out here is that when your youngest daughter was taken, they used a mixture of people. They used Derbyshire Private Court, Derbyshire Cafcass Legal with Staffordshire Cafcass Guardian, Birmingham Independent Social Worker, who was, you say, obviously working for Staffordshire as a local authority association. So we've got a very, very devious network. So if you try and pin down who's responsible, who's accountable, they all hide behind this nebulous relationship between them all.
The County Council's network, in one of their statements, their main aim is to streamline central government. So that central government can do whatever they do.
Right.
You know, so that it's actually challenging central government. They want more power to steal from us, more power to tax us or whatever.
Right. Paul and Asher, we know that there are now thousands, tens of thousands of people, and it's growing daily, who are disgusted at what they've seen. I think the right word is their hearts go out to you two at the moment. What would you like the wider public to do to help you both?
I don't think there is anything anyone can do. I'm not scared of prison, and they could threaten me with certain death. You know, I'm still not scared. This is my family, my future that they're messing with. And it's not just my family, it's thousands of families this is happening to. And a lot of these families are scared to come forward, they're scared to talk. You know, but I'm not. This is it. They've wrecked my family completely. It's genocide. All these thousands of families just wiped out.
Right.
You know, it says in the laws, removing one child from one group, which is a family group, and putting him with another family group. It's in the genocide legal definition of that. Why aren't anyone doing anything about it? What are the police doing?
Well, Paul, I'm going to say to you that I think the public have got a job to do. That's all of us, every man and woman in this country, because we've got to do what you really suggested back there in a little bit earlier. You said that basically we need to pull these people out of their little holes and examine them and see what they're doing. And of course, what tens of thousands of people, what millions of people can do is start asking the questions of the perpetrators. Who are these people? What are their names? What are their positions? Where do they work? Who is paying them? Who is organising them? Why won't the MPs take any responsibility for this disgraceful stealing and abuse of children? The public needs to ask the questions, and if they do, we'll be well on the way to stopping it. We've got to leave you there, Paul, because we've run out of time now. You've got a court case coming up. Can you just tell us where that is and the time so that people know?
Yeah. As far as I know, it's in Derby County Court, which is opposite the Eagle Centre.
And when is that? Tomorrow?
Pardon?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 10.
Tomorrow at 10 o'clock in Derby?
Derby
Okay.
County Court.
So for any of the people out there who are up north, and we're allowed to say that, of course, perhaps you could get yourselves to the court in order to give peaceful, calm, well-behaved support to this family. It's up to us to stop what's going on. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure UK Column Live will be reporting more cases of this type of abuse by the British government. Goodbye.